The gauntlet is over. Let's see how I did. So join me, watch me suffer and curse the Norwegian overlord, and perhaps enjoy the taste of sweet victory. Big thanks to Zizeran for being the masochist he is. I hope it leads to an enjoyable video.
For years you built a life upon faith, only to smite it asunder with one sinful...
I've played the gauntlet last time, didn't make it past Malachi however. I haven't looked at anything really regarding the gauntlet before starting. I thought that would make for an interesting video. Did I prepare a build? No, I thought I would just start Templar and play SRS. Everything goes well until I encounter Hillock, so not for that long, who not only hurts like hell but is accompanied by the Maven. He leap slams for some reason and I don't last very long. Story of my life. But hey, this happens to the best of us. Let's try again. I decide to clear the whole beach, find a life flask, click some barrels. Here's another life flask and the body armor. I take damage on the tree because why make the smart choice? And I managed to kill Hillock this time. And I unlock the MTX. Mission successful. I pick Smite, get a rustic sash, do a contest for the slowest smite attack possible. I encounter the next unique boss in literally the next zone right outside of town, who stun knocks me and kills me. This event is freaking horrible. But okay, I go again, and this time I'm not gonna bother with melee classes but go ranged. Still, without a build, but this witch has a plan, and that is to go Popcorn SRS Necromancer. I think it's a great idea. Hillock isn't so hard if you don't actually have to stand next to him, so that's good. I get Rolling Magma, an Iron Hat with Fire Res, but I also feel these triple projectiles are pretty nuts. It's such a mindfuck. I path towards minion nodes. Here is my arch nemesis again, but this time it is her who burns. Turns out I must face 2 hill rakes, not too bad, and I get SRS, which does okay in terms of damage. I manage to kill the crab. I almost get killed when I decide to take a left turn and run into a bunch of angry goatmen, and I'm dying to tell you the story of the Popcorn Witch, but this video isn't really about her, as it turns out. Even though I have footage of a bunch of boss kills, and even though she makes it all the way to Act 4, and even though she is in fact still alive, there was a problem. And the problem was, I just wasn't having fun, and I realized this event is not the place to start winging it, or at least not to this extent. I think I can do better as well than Popcorn SRS. Instead, let's play my own build, Guardian SRS. Lovely people meet Reiji, the Templar. I get Glacial Hammer, I get the support gem. I clear the beach, that worked last time. I get these rare boots, opt to make the smart choice, and as long as you can avoid Hillock's damage and tank everything else, such as Maven balls, you're gonna be fine, even on melee. I decide to log back in on the witch, pillage the library, and effectively use her as a giant mule that made it to Act 4. At least then she's made herself somewhat useful and this effort is not gone to waste. I managed to avoid getting stun locked, kill the double hill rake which provides level 4, and that means SRS, linked to Summon Phantasm and Ruthless in the body armor. I get a decoy totem and zombies too for now. I decide to overlevel by running a few more tidal islands, get a rustic sash, iron gauntlets, survive the mud flats and reach level 8 in the flooded depths, which means melee splash support. Now the build is pretty much online. Here are better gloves. I essence the 3-link body armor, get life on the passive tree. Here's level 10. I avoid the left exit, the goat town. I loot a magic helmet because every little bit helps in this event, and I get a bunch of flasks from the usual spot. Normally I would equip 2 quicksilver flasks in the campaign, but I feel I can't do that in the gauntlet. I get a good rare shield. I'm first greeted by Cole, who escaped from the Temple of Lunaris, and then it's time for Brutus combined with a bunch of Hydra balls. I feel what is most important here is avoiding his ground slam wave thing, which really hurts, and then try to not get hit by all the other stuff as a secondary priority. In between, I summon Raging Spirits whenever possible, and the damage output is good enough. This wasn't too hard. I get a rare circlet, craft as much resistance on gear as I can already, every little bit helps, and resistance is not looking too bad. I get 3 link gloves and link Holy Flame Totem to summon Phantasm and Combustion. I reach level 15 and take Enduring Bond, making SRS last much longer. Fairgraves summons some additional help, but goes down nonetheless. I get minion AoE, get a greater mana flask with bleed immunity, get more life, life regen and armor, and it's time for Merveil. Or so I thought, because in true Gauntlet fashion, inspired by Norwegian wicked humor, the Gauntlet creators thought it was fun to first spawn every Act 1 unique enemy before the boss even starts, which in some cases is pretty messed up, like Brutus here with that ground slam wave ability. Having to swap between these bosses and figuring out what they do and what to avoid in an instant is more difficult in-game than it may seem when watching. When it's time for the actual boss, however, it's not that hard. I think there are additional monsters and the extra projectiles can be a bit dangerous, but my minions block a lot of them, and while it is not super fast, she goes down, meaning it is time for Act 2. I get a new helm, Essence the gloves, life is good, but I'm looking for resistances. I take Tempest Shield from my quest reward for shock immunity. I fight this guy who is definitely oak. The Weaver goes down, summoning Arcali couldn't help her. I'm checking mercs, but I never attempt them. I spare a Lyra, or maybe it is the other way around in the Gauntlet. Get 15% elemental resistances. Corrupt a Calling Wand, which is actually an upgrade, so I equip it after a bit of gem swapping. I reach level 28 and it's already time for the Act boss. First he summons all of the unique bosses of the Act, which I anticipate at this point, so I just try to keep my distance while my minions kill them. So far, so good. Then it is time for the real boss, which at first sight goes extremely well, as my minions already nuke him down to half life. But then the Norwegian Oversoul decided to put in a bunch of Vaal architects, and not only do I have no clue what these guys actually do in terms of abilities, I also have absolutely no clue what these guys do in terms of abilities. This is getting dicey real fast. I barely dodge his slam. There are red circles everywhere, which may or may not hurt. The whole screen is filled with purple projectiles, which I'm scared of as I have 0% chaos res. There's green puddles on the ground, that's also not a color you want to see with 0% chaos res, and my minions are all over the place. But I try to keep it cool, avoid the abilities that I think really hurt, his laser and his slam, hope my minions find their way to the target, and ultimately he dies. These fights are tense, and beating the boss truly feels like an achievement. And with that, it's time for Act 3. I reach level 31. I take these new boots, meaning I'm now elemental res gapped. I gamble for a 4 link and I get 2 of them, and I kinda like the last one. I link Summon Raging Spirits to elemental damage with attacks, elemental focus and melee splash. I craft lightning res on it and I'm capped again. I've picked up Ray Spectre and summoned myself a Carnage Chieftain for some frenzy charges. I have an animate guardian as well who is going to pick up some random stuff like this mace. The spring leaf, however, that I drop over here, that's not a bad shield at all, that should keep him alive for now. I got a belt of the Deceiver, which would normally be for the homie, but I ain't touching no homies this run, at least not in the campaign, so I will equip it myself. This is a good upgrade. I find a shield with +1 fire, and SRS has the fire tag. It is Piety time, who I think summons a bunch of extra anus plants, but is otherwise just like vanilla Piety, and therefore not too difficult. Here you see the passive tree so far, basically it's only life and minion stats. And with that I move to Dominus. First you fight his own minions as per usual, the ones coming out of that massive contraption. The extra projectiles and attack speed on some of these can be an issue, but as you can tell I am overleveled quite a bit. I feel I have a decent health pool and I'm not too concerned. He then summons all of the bosses again, some of which can be an issue, like Gravicious. There's Cole, again, he is really not having a great time in the Gauntlet, a bit like me. And then Dominus himself makes an appearance. The lightning spell he uses can hurt with this many projectiles. And the Elder Rings will absolutely one-shot you, but they are pretty easy to avoid and predict. Dominus is not a hard fight. My single target damage is excellent. It's time for Act 4. Anything I can't use goes to the Animate Guardian. That's not necessarily effective, but it is fun. Here is Vol, the opposite of my animate guardian. He is very effective in killing me, but it's not very fun. I complete quick recovery on the passive tree, gamble new boots with decent stats, get vitality back into the build. The Resso surprises me with triple the number of ice soldiers, but he is otherwise okay. I reach level 43, get increased minion damage. I find Piety again, and I think it is the same fight, but the 3 projectiles are messed up, and I'm sure if I get hit by the beam it's probably over. But getting hit by 3 of those red AoE things doesn't seem great either. Fortunately, SRS damage is decent, so I managed to pull it off. That means I get unleashed support for SRS and the Carrion Golem, which will be linked to Feeding Frenzy and the Elemental Army, significantly improving my DPS. I decide to ascend, fight the first Izaro, somewhat of a challenge, primarily because of the extra projectiles, but it's okay. You can see I already have 1650 life and 350 energy shield, so I'm pretty tanky. In the second fight, I get hit by a wave, but it seems to be fine. I'm not gonna make a habit out of tanking these, however. The third and final fight goes well. I gamble on a gem, I take the zombies, who knows, and then it's time to ascend. And here is a little issue. I'm expecting I can take the Radiant Sentinel, but this ascendancy doesn't look like Guardian at all. I didn't realize the gauntlet was alternate ascendancies. I should have read the memo, I suppose. Well, fortunately, Puppeteer seems okay, I guess. I'm quickly checking the other ascendancies, but that doesn't seem to work at all with SRS, but perhaps the Puppeteer will be fine. Marination in particular looks appealing, as Marination should. 20% of max life as energy shield. I'm gonna need all the tankiness I can muster, so let's take this one. It's time to repo some organs. Chevron has a ring around her, but not much more. Doedry, who is deadly with 3 projectiles, has a proximity shield, but SRS minions aren't bothered by that. Maligaro has also a ring, but I have no clue what it does. He dies fast though, so I won't have to find out the hard way. Let's take on the big boss, my nemesis. He killed me last time I ran the gauntlet. First, it is all of the bosses again, and Piety does again pose a challenge, just like Doedry, but nothing I can't handle. And then I remember this bullshit, the Maven beams. What's great about SRS is that you can just spam them and avoid all the mechanics and say a little prayer that they find their target. Phase 1 goes well, Phase 2, however, is pretty hectic. Getting hit by beams is a serious issue. Getting hit by Malachi when he emerges from the ground is probably a death sentence, but I'm carried by the minions who do a lot of DPS, and I'm happy to be leaving this place. It's time for Act 5. I decided to change my auras a bit. I take Purity of Elements, Tempest Shield and Clarity. My Guardian SRS would go Eldritch Battery, but I figured I needed the energy shield for the gauntlet on my life bar, not on my mana bar, so I'm getting some mana regeneration to make up for that. I farm the Chamber of Innocence for an hour or 2, get more mana reservation, drop a great heavy belt with chaos resistance. I farm some more. You can see my gear and passive points boost me to almost 2k life and 880 energy shield. The more life I have, the more energy shield thanks to my ascendancy. I have 40% chaos res at this point. I find an improved body armor, and with that extra socket I get vitality back into the build. I decided to take on the boss. See, he is possessed by a spirit however, and that is a big no-no. Time to run the chambers one more time, go again, and this time he is not possessed. Well, not by spirits at least. DPS is great, I'm probably overleveled by 8 levels or so, but better safe than sorry. Innocence pops out. I was pretty scared for this fight, but I'm powering through his phases. He is mainly using Torch, which is easy to dodge, and he goes down. I get a new amulet, you can see my defenses on the left. I get a new shield with physical damage reduction and reduced crit. That seems like a very smart thing to have. I get even more life on the tree and it is time for Kitava. The unique monsters are not an issue at all. Kitava himself seems fine, but I get almost tapped by the freaking double beam coming out of that heart. It's pure luck I wasn't in the wrong spot there. It does seem the starting position is always the same, however. Besides that, this is a very smooth fight, which is rare, but I'm not complaining. I equip the shield after the boss fight, because of course I do, and it's time for Act 6. First, I'm gonna craft some stuff, like this circlet. 100 life is great, and the little currency I have turns out to be just enough. I take more life on the tree, decides to do an expedition, which is maybe taking on a bit too much risk, and talking about risk, I get incredibly close to dying here. And if you wonder why I don't log out or something, that is simply not in my system. I'm not gonna be fast enough with that, with pressing a button. I almost never play hardcore, so it's just not something I do. Part of the reason why these guys hurt so much is because they deal 30% of physical damage as chaos. Fortunately, I drop an amethyst ring. I almost get killed again, this time by an abyss monster who was applying for a job as a carrion golem in my army, and I decided to craft a bit more. Armor and energy shield on the chest, dex on the wand, so I can wear the amethyst ring. Make the implicit worse with a blessed orb. Chaos res is at least somewhat manageable, and I soldier on. I kill Brutus 2.0, reach level 56, get foul clarity from a foul side area, fight Aberrath, who turns out to be more dangerous than I thought. I get a dying breath from a red beast, which is great. That goes straight onto the animate guardian. Here is Rizlatha, and this is not an issue at all, so she goes down. I get some better boots, which I only needed to color correctly. I complete another minion cluster to balance all the tankiness with some offense, and I kill a host chieftain and decide he should join my army as well as a spectre for power charges. Mr. and Mrs. Crab are next. Let's see what madness I must overcome this time. First, of course, all of the unique monsters, that goes without saying. Brutus 2.0 is scary actually with how fast he is, and Aberrath summoning a meteor storm, that's not amazing. But then, holy shit, what are those waves? I'm scared they reduce cold res or something, but they just seem to push me out of the way, so I suppose I'm fine if I don't get hit by the crab slam. Which I don't, I kill him, and it's time for the next chapter. In my infinite wisdom, I take on more expeditions for the cowgirl. I do find a Doedre's Damning, which may come in handy. I reach level 61 in a 52 zone and complete a Chaos Res cluster, bringing Chaos Res to 57%. Maligaro has some extra beams, but nothing major. Gruthgul, on the other hand, decided to request the help of Uber Elder, because why not? This almost kills me. I'm getting very low here, but managed to stay ahead of this crazy fast unit, and my minions take another victory. I find a merc. I do check all of them, but I don't click them. However, this guy has an immortal flesh, and this much life regeneration on a belt is going to be great for me. I just have to kill him. I managed to do that, slot it in. I don't have enough resistances for it right now, but soon, TM. I take corrupted blood immunity, seems like a great idea, and then our Kali time. Out of the monsters she summons, Maligaro almost kills me with his stealth attack. This gauntlet is really something every now and then, let me tell you. The rest of the bosses are kind of fine, although Gruthgul remains scary. The fight itself though is very easy. There are only a bunch of constant chaos lasers, so it's just like Itava, a smooth fight. I take her Pantheon for now, and it is on to the next one. I get an armor and energy shield mastery, reduced damage taken from crits, and aura effect. It is time for some gear changes. The challenge is to equip that immortal flesh. 11% fire resistance isn't gonna cut it, let's be honest. Maybe I should hit a ruby ring up with an alchemy orb. No, that's a bad ring. Replace the helmet with this one? I'm not sure. Another amulet maybe? No, it's not enough attributes. But the helmet goes in, and also these gloves. I link Carrion Golem to Ruthless Support for really no apparent reason. I need a blue link to try my luck, but I fail. I need to slot in my Purity of Elements as well, and after finding a spot I have 29 Fire Res. I recraft Fire Res on the ring, taking it to 56%. I get it on the gloves as well, 76%. Chaos Res, 59%. Ideally you get a little bit more, but I feel the insane life regen on the belt is worth this trade-off. I wanted to craft on the chest, but I'm out of alchemy orbs. I sell the rest for currency and I continue the journey. And that journey brings me to Doedre, who poses no more issues than she usually does, which isn't saying a whole lot. I decide my chest piece is the weakest link and gamble for a new one, and what do you know, it's a 5 link. And a good one too. 3 blues and 2 reds, that seems fine. I still don't have alchemy orbs to craft, but I buy a minion damage support gem and I get a flash and stone as well while I'm at it. If I pause the frame you can tell the auras, and I'm running a level 5 clarity, level 8 vitality, and then purity of elements, tempest shield and flesh and stone. Sand stance of course. I just keep adding life in the meantime. The numbers are 2700 life, 1300 energy shield, and some minion pen for damage. The build plays like this in Act 8. It's very slow but it's quite tanky. I found an alchemy orb, meaning I can craft on my body armor. That is 850 armor and 200 ES on a chest piece. I'll take that in Act 8. I get a jewel socket and drop this jewel in there, life and res. I think flesh and stone is decent because the monsters have 30% increased movement speed, so they are near you in no time. Taking less damage from those hits is good. I get a small loot explosion. It is an okay wand. I farmed the harbor bridge for a while and I reached level 68. I decided to do the second lab, kill Izaro once more and take Enervating Presence, which basically instantly takes 20% life from the life bar of enemies. And it says nearby, but it is most of my screen. You can see that here. This is quite powerful. It's time for the Celestial Sisters. 3k life, 1500 ES. You would think that is okay. And it is. The unique bosses pose no issues and also the sisters don't. The only ability I'm scared of is Solaris' spear throw, which then forks, but I stay behind her and then I should be fine. Damage is high as well though. I take Lunara's Pantheon for the physical damage mitigation and I'm nearing the end of the gauntlet. It's time for Act 9. First, the Scorpion Queen. I don't see much of a difference, just more AoE and thus more quicksand. Here is another queen, Garokan, and it's pretty much the same. Tons of AoE, but that's about it. I take on the general and there's 2 of them, that's just not great. I take the trigger craft, it's very important on a summoner. It's hidden in this little underground area. Oh, and don't wait around, get out ASAP. I get several upgrades and after that my life is 3.4k with 1.6k energy shield. But I haven't recorded much of that, which is for some reason a bit of a theme in this act. Maligaro dies and it's already time for the Trinity, probably the hardest fight in the campaign, although I didn't record too much of it, which is a shame. She summons Maven balls, her own balls, all sorts of other shit. I get pretty low here, but I managed to kill her in time. With this out of the way, there is only one act left. I drop a Loctonial Caress, which I hand over to the Animate Guardian. Valenta goes down. I turn my 4-link into a 3-link, so I can link Flammability and Flame Dash to life tap, and the 4th socket is then separate to prevent the cost multiplier on the aura. I meet some Betrayal members, reach level 75, get Bramblejack, which I donate to the Animate Guardian, semi-automate another flask and another, and I upgrade the life flasks as well. I take Divine Shield, that is some decent energy shield regen. I take down Avarius, who is a very speedy character but otherwise not too dangerous. I keep trying to color this helmet, but I fail. A little later, however, I succeed. It doesn't have life, but it does have a lot of armor and energy shield. I drop a Victarios for the homie. I almost die here, right before Kitava. This was an incredibly close call, but fortunately I make it out of the stun lock. And then it is time for Kitava. But this guy doesn't summon the Act 10 uniques, which you might expect. No, he summons all of the Act bosses. The Fizz scales damage from some of these can really mess you up, but I make it through this campaign gauntlet to face off with Kitava. My SRS does a lot of damage, making him phase a bunch of times almost instantly, and that gives me time to recover in case I got hit by something. The 2 red circles are a little annoying. There aren't a lot of safe areas in this small boss arena, but thanks to decent minion damage it is still quite an easy fight. I get an MTX for my trouble and the campaign is over. I made it out and this was my goal. I'm pretty happy about this actually. It is time to wake up, get the Kirek, get the final passive points and check the passives using the chat command, and I'm all good. What else can I achieve though? That is the question. Well, dear viewer, you're about to find out. Ramparts is up first. Maps have 20% increased attack, cast and movement speed, and monsters take 20% less damage. It's a lot easier than the campaign. I gamble for new boots and I get the Wake of Destruction, which goes onto the Animate Guardian. I do any league mechanic that spawns. I can for sure use the resources like oils and blight. I haven't interacted with mercenaries throughout the campaign, but I encounter a promising kineticist, and after a 1-minute very tense fight she joins me. Finally, a homie, providing haste aura and elemental weakness curse. I give her the Victarios, Doedri's Damning and the Belt of the Deceiver, which I've picked up before. This setup works well, and here's level 78. Some lead mechanics can be a little dicey, however. Whenever you hear this sound of exploding corpses, you should get out ASAP. I don't play hardcore much, so I've gained an achievement by killing the boss in Colosseum. That's not bad. I gamble more boots as it is the only piece that isn't armor and ES, and to get another wake of destruction. This time it is for the homie. I use Kirek to buy a bunch of uncompleted maps. I roll them, but only make them magic because I don't want to die yet. I get more oils from Blight, and I decide to anoint Essence Infusion for energy shield recharge. I'm taking on another mercenary for an amethyst ring. I get new gloves and color them. It is a good chunk of life right there. I craft fire res, and here you see the resistances. Chaos res is back to 65%. I use my remaining armor scraps, every little bit helps, and I do the same for the Eldritch currency. Not that it helps a whole lot, but fine. I've made it to this minion cluster. I run a temple of Etzoatl, but take a look at the modifiers and realize it may be a death sentence, so I'm out of here. I changed my aura setup a bit, losing Tempest Shield and Flesh and Stone, and taking Vitality, Clarity, Determination and Purity of Elements instead. I get my first Divine Vessel, reach level 82, drop a new Convoking Wand, annul a suffix, color it for Desecrate and Flesh Offering, and craft the trigger on it. I upgrade some other crafts as well, like the life on the shield and movement speed on boots. I decided to use the arrogance support to reserve a bit of life to also be able to run precision for accuracy on my minions, and I think I put clarity over there as well. I see a great ring on a mercenary. These are challenging as they can one-shot you, but yeah. Here's the ring. I'm res capped after equipping it, which feels good. I roll a bunch more maps, load them into the pouch, and I run another batch of them, just grinding it out. I will say though, I am not necessarily enjoying this playthrough, but we'll get to that. All of it I find very stressful and not all that fun, while you watch me almost die again. Having to constantly pay attention to your character is simply not enjoyable, and I'm not gonna compete for points anyway, so it is kind of useless while I reach level 83. I am sort of curious where I can take this in a way, but I'm also kinda done. I do a little respec. I've decided to not invest in block, and I take the minion cluster. I take Zelaf's Oath, as I do have a lot of life regeneration, but I am losing my energy shield first, unless it scales damage. So I would rather have that life regen apply to my energy shield, and not my life bar. Here is the Atlas tree, and I'm going for Ritual. Ritual is great. This one drops a Spirit of Fortune, Wrath, that's a decent buff, and I drop it and I summon it. I give the homie a new wand, reunite with an old friend who almost kills me, get the Gruthkul Pantheon completed, improve my life flask a bit, keep gambling for boots without success, get a blood bond which I donate to the animated guardian, I drop a Rise of the Phoenix, I think that's a great shield, I color it, quality it, and that is a bunch of life regen and maximum resistance. I take the energy shield mastery that prevents 30% of chaos damage from bypassing the energy shield. I employ a blasphemer into the army just because it dropped. You can tell the life and energy shield numbers are steadily increasing. I get my first exalt. You can tell in these maps that recovery is excellent. I get a forest warrior that is permanent onslaught and culling strike, and I resurrect him in the hideout. I have feared the lab for a long time. I'm scared of it when it's not hardcore, but now even more. I'm level 84, it's time for lab 3, however, which works well. I decide on Rotting Might. I reach level 85, take more life, craft more life on a ring and give it to the homie. Drop an Eclipse Solaris, that's also for the homie. Blinded enemies is another layer of defense. I get a new amulet, it's pretty decent. Here is a little bit of gameplay, and I'm running a blue tier 4 map on a level 85 character with this much effective health pool. It just doesn't feel good. Here's the boss, and again, I think it's a decent showcase of how much recovery this build has right now. I find a trial. These are actually somewhat challenging because they do so much damage and they bleed, and I'm not bleed immune. And I get an offering. I find the hybrid chaos resistance craft, that's very useful. I reach level 86, get more life, I get another batch of maps in, gamble some upgraded boots, which means now my whole armor set is armor and energy shield, so I can take the mastery that doubles the armor and ES on body armor. I spec out of attributes that I no longer need. I get a jewel for some flat minion damage and taunt. I get an omen of the jeweler, drop a shaper's seed for even more life and mana regen. I vendor a bunch of flasks for baubles, automate my jade and quartz flask, get more life and mana after leveling up, I gamble some decent gloves, get more bad outcomes of my Eldritch Implicits, get another batch of oils from Blight, take on another homie, and while these fights are scary, a better homie is worth a lot. I drop a Leer cast for the Animate Guardian, I find a great minion wand, again on a mercenary, so I am in for another challenge. I win, I craft the trigger, and this is a big upgrade. I do my first Maven invitation to check if Zizran also implemented more sadistic stuff, but it seems he didn't. This isn't too bad. In the laboratory, during the boss fight, I decide to open a ritual, only to realize this expanding area of effect is going to eat me alive. It's time to portal out. I haggle a bit with Tujin. It turns out I have a +1 minion skill wand that I just identified, which I equip. I reach level 88 while running tier 6 maps. I repeat, while running tier 6 maps. And what do you think I get from the tree? Something exciting? Yes, more life. I get an anoint, this time it is robust, more life regeneration, which is converted to energy shield regeneration, and I decide to do the final lab. I slot in multi-strike instead of melee splash. The fight itself is a little hectic but doable. I'm not sure with this much life I would get one shot, but okay. I get another Steam achievement, which I guess is cool, and I take Feeding Frenzy for a crit for minions. I really don't synergize super well with that, but I'm also not really sure what else to take. The +1 curse you could argue, but I already have the homie for that, so I think this is fine. I get a lucky transfigure option here and decide to swap the Animate Guardian so he starts smiting enemies instead of just walking around. Because why not? He will survive the map tiers I'm running anyway. There's one big issue with the Gauntlet, and that is that I'm not having a good time. This thing is clearly not made for me, and that's not a criticism, that's just a fact. It is stressful and somehow boring because you are forced to run low level maps to grind your own levels and gear and whatnot, and I just don't think that's very exciting. There is a sense of achievement because I feel I am achieving something here. I mean, I'm literally getting achievements from Steam, but I'm not much of a masochist. I like playing this game in a chill way, and this is anything but. Still, I soldier on for now. I understand level 90 gives another go at a reward. I might get lucky, who knows. I unlock another Atlas tree. I decide to start farming a Darkness Enthroned and XP, so I go Abyss and Player Power. I drop my first 6 link, but this is unusable. I get another Leer cast from an Abyssal Trove, and this one is for the homie. I respect my tree a bit, take the minion crit cluster, life and aura effect. I find my first divine orb, my gems are reaching level 20, I get a 6 link I could potentially use, but it has terrible stats. In a normal run I would equip this, but in the Gauntlet it seems like a bad idea. I can't do without these defenses. I automate my final flask, gamble again for more chest pieces. I get another 5 link which I craft on, but then I see the other chest piece that I gambled, and this thing is pretty insane. It is time for one final crafting session, as it turns out. I remember I have an Omen of the Jeweler, which I use for 6 sockets. I have 123 fusings, which should be enough for a 5 link at least, so I will go for that, and I hit it after around 80 fusings. Because my current chest has Chaos Res, I need to fix that on the helmet, which I do. I craft semi-decent Eldritch Implicits on the chest and a few one on the helmet as well, and on the boots, because why not? And this is the end result. 2400 armor, 491 energy shield, which gets doubled by the mastery. It is a very good piece of equipment. I now have 3900 unreserved life, 4500 energy shield, and I'm still running yellow maps by the way, which again, it just doesn't feel right. And what you won't notice in this video so much, despite its length, is that this journey spanned multiple play sessions across more than a week's time. I couldn't play for more than a few hours at a time because it is stressful and not fun. I've cut out pretty much all of that grinding involved, but trying to get to level 90 in tier 6 maps takes a load of time. I did reach level 90 ultimately, I somehow didn't record that however, and I've reached a point now where I am just hoping my character gets one shot so I can make this video and get back to my normal life. This Gauntlet is not for me, that much is clear. And the perfect opportunity arises because I have found an audience with the king. That's the level 83 zone. I don't actually know if they changed the fight or not, but I was like, let's just try out a boss. Damage isn't all that high, but I'm taking very little damage here, so that's good, I guess. Everything goes well until he reaches the intermission phase. I know how that phase works, mechanically at least, with the wisps, but I typically log out, which teleports you then back into the arena and lets you skip this entire phase. Not in the gauntlet, however, or maybe it was fixed in general, I'm unsure. I get some extra life flasks for the boss while I'm logged out. I log back in. I'm still in the intermission, which is a little weird, but okay. I'll do the wisps then, right?
Oh, I'm not hauling you back to town.
And then I'm one shot, maybe because of this debuff, maybe because they just burned through 9000 hit pool with capped chaos res, I'm not sure. But the suffering is finally over. I can't show my character, it got migrated instantly and the ascendancy is gone. But yeah, the journey is I think way more interesting than the character and you've seen most of it. I am glad the gauntlet is over. I'm proud I made it past the campaign and I reached level 90 on my own build. I learned a thing or two about defenses on the Templar and I hope you had a good time watching this very long episode. I just didn't feel like cutting it up into parts. I think you can appreciate that in this case. If you did enjoy it, consider liking and subscribing. I would appreciate that. And thanks for making it to the end. I'll see you next time. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.